Greetings in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. We want to thank you guys so much for joining us yet another day on our journey again, changing lives one at a time, creating opportunities for kids in the Caribbean region throughout the world, and making a difference. Thank you guys so much for taking time off your busy schedule. Today we have a wonderful guest with us, Mr. Fitzgerald Bramble, with us from St. Vincent. He's an MP in St. Vincent, and also played collegiate soccer, coached a bit. I had a conversation with him yesterday, very interested conversation. I know I viewed him playing at one point against our national teams and that kind of stuff. And it's so wonderful, guys, as I've been preaching, you know, in terms of, you know, it's very important to head off to school and get your qualifications and grow into the person you're supposed to be, knowing that education is very, very critical along the way with your journey. So without further ado, I was asked to call him Fitz, which is his nickname, so I would call him Fitz. Due respect to you, Fitz, Mr. MP, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Anthony. Thank you for having me, and let me say a pleasant welcome to all the viewers, listeners. It's really my pleasure and my honor to be here on this program today to share my experience, basically my life experience, because where I am today is pretty much a culmination of what I've gone through, you know, over the last however many years since I've been down here on this earth. I suppose I can start, Anthony, and you can guide me here on basically my journey as a soccer player, as a little boy growing up in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, all the way to Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia. And then after that, or during and after that, well, before, during, and after that, representing my national team at all levels up to World Cup qualifiers. But more importantly, you know, the benefits that I enjoy, if I can use that term, from being the beneficiary of a university scholarship. So maybe I can start by giving a sort of a brief account of how I started and my journey. You know, as a young boy growing up, for those of you who are familiar with St. Vincent and the Grenadines, it's a multi-island state. St. Vincent is the main island, and the Grenadines is a group of smaller islands, kind of similar to the Bahamas. And I grew up on one of the smaller islands called Bequia. You know, and as a young boy growing up in Bequia, we really did not enjoy much by way of sporting opportunities, facilities, you know, competitions and so on, as did the young boys growing up on mainland St. Vincent. So we really had to work twice, three times as hard to get to any sort of a decent level of playing. I'm talking particularly about soccer here, but sports in general. So in Bequia, I started off as a little boy. And back in those days, there was really no structured youth soccer. Well, there really wasn't any structured soccer. You know, it was after maybe when I was close to being a teenager that organized competition started in Bequia. And I remember the very first competition, the goals were made of wood with a piece of bamboo as the crossbar. And at the risk of dating myself and giving away my age, it really wasn't that long ago. I mean, this was back in the 70s, pretty much, you know. And so I played every sport pretty much. I guess God gifted me with some athletic talent. So I played cricket, I played soccer, I ran track and field, I played table tennis. I mean, you name it. And I was pretty decent at all of them. I mean, one can argue that maybe because the level of competition wasn't that good, and we really didn't have a whole lot of athletes to choose from. But nonetheless, I went through primary school, elementary school, but my main sport at the time was cricket, you know? And it wasn't until I got to secondary to high school, I started playing playing soccer, or football as we call it. And I first represented my high school, my secondary school, when I got to in the Caribbean, when we call it, I was in Form 3 at the time. I think Form 3 would have been like grade 10 or somewhere thereabout. So, and then after that, you know, the sky was the limit. I started, I mean, I was a goalkeeper. So I was just natural, you know, I wanted to dive for everything. I mean, shots would be coming straight at me and I'll be diving, you know? So I love the spectacle and I love the opportunity to be that man of the moment on the soccer field. So I enjoyed that and I wanted to prolong that. And I wanted to continue to be the center of attraction. So I made it my personal business from a very young age to really do a lot of training on my own. Back in those days, we really didn't have any soccer coaches per se. We didn't have all these access to, you know, proper coaching and videos and all the technology and stuff. As a matter of fact, back in those days, we barely had a landline telephone, you know, let alone cell phones and social media and all that stuff. None of that stuff was around. So long story short, I completed my secondary school education on Beckway, and then I migrated back to mainland St. Vincent because I am from the mainland. I was born in the mainland, but I ended up in Beckway as a little boy with family, and the family raised me because I am one of 5 children of a single mother. And, you know, my mom was really, back in those days, she struggled to take care of us. I'm sure a lot of people can identify with this kind of situation, this kind of social setting, but that's my reality. So as a young boy, family took me and raised me, and my mom was happy because that was some help for her. She was difficult for her to raise us economically. So anyway, after completing high school, I moved over back to the mainland, St. Vincent, and I pursued my A-level education. And for those of you who are not too familiar with that, those of you from the Caribbean would know, but for those of you who are not too familiar, so A-level would be like grade 12, just out of high school, maybe community college kind of comparison. And when I was in, actually, let me back up a little bit. When I was still in high school, I was selected to my country's under-19 squad, you know, as a goalkeeper, and I played there. I wasn't the starting keeper, but it was a good experience. I remember very, very distinctly, and like it was yesterday, we got a 6-1 trubbing from Trinidad and Tobago. And back in those days, Trinidad and Tobago had guys like Brian Williams. I remember him for sure. You know, and that experience stood with me because I was like, man, I never lost a game by 6 goals to 1. And even though I was on the bench, I took it personally. And I committed from then to really ply my trade. I was like, well, if I was on the field, I don't think I would have gotten 6, you know? But at the same time, the starting goalkeeper, admittedly, was performing better than I did at the time. And I made a commitment that I'm not going to be on any bench after that. So I put in a lot of personal time, training, doing my own stuff that I didn't even understand. I didn't even understand what to do as a goalkeeper. Like I said, we didn't have, you know, proper coaches. We didn't, back in those days, we didn't have licensed soccer coaches and stuff. It was the PE teacher or some former national player or something like that who did the coaching. So I did a lot of stuff on my own. I did a lot of beach training, you know, diving after tennis balls, because my PE teacher told me if you want to improve your handling and your catching, it's good to, you know, work with a smaller ball. So I would have my friends toss the tennis ball for me on the beach, and I'll be diving for everything. Like I said, I love to dive, you know, and on the beach, you're on the sand, it's soft, and that's how I work. I work very, very hard. I played for my A-level college team as well. And then when I was ending my first year as an A-level student, I got selected to the senior national team. And while training and preparing for, it was back then, I think it was called the Shell Caribbean Cup. That was back in the early to mid 80s. The national team benefited from the services of a coach, a German coach named Hubert Vogelsinger. I don't know if any of you would have heard of him, but I know I think he was coach at Yale University at one time. And then he did some coaching of some semi-pro teams in the US, back over in California to be precise. So Hubert came down to work out our national team, and I was the only schoolboy on the senior national team at the time. And I was always very vocal and very, energetic and very lively and a leader. As young as I was a leader, and I led by example. I talked a lot, I directed the game, I encouraged my teammates. And so I caught his attention immediately. That's Hubert's attention. So one day after practice, we were talking, and he said to me, he asked me, what do I do and stuff. I said, well, I'm still in school. I'm still in secondary school. And I don't know what I want to do, but all I know is that I want the soccer scholarship, So he said, okay, when I get back to the States, I'm going to try to see what I can do. Back in those days, we didn't have videotapes, Anthony. We didn't have, you couldn't just do like a highlight video and send it to coaches. We had nothing. We barely had black and white photographs, quite frankly speaking, So Hubert, I suppose he was impressed with my performance and my attitude, my character, my level of intelligence. So when he got back to the States, about 3 weeks after, I got a letter in the mail, because back in those days, we didn't have email and stuff. A letter came in the mail to the Soccer Federation addressed to me. And it was an offer of a soccer scholarship from Old Dominion University. And I was like, holy smokes. So, I was like, I couldn't believe this. In fact, when that letter came, I was in Guyana with my club playing. We visited Guyana to play some friendly games. And I was in Guyana, got a call in the hotel from the Soccer Federation's vice president telling me that there's a letter there from a university in the States. So I told him, go ahead and open the letter and let me know what it was. And that was my offer. They wanted me to sign my LOI at that time, my letter of intent, without even speaking to me. So they just took the coach at Old Dominion, Bill Killen. I think he coached at Yale as well, and he also played for the US national team. He just took Vogelsinger's recommendation. And man, I was like, this has to be divine intervention for me to be so fortunate, And I was excited. I did all that I had to do. And as I said, I came from a single parent family. And my mom her focus was just to take care of us, feed us and make sure we were okay. So my mom didn't know anything about, all she was telling us, make sure you stay in school and do well. That was it. My mom didn't help us with homework. She didn't know anything about doing, science projects and all that stuff. We were on our own. And I think that foundation really helped me tremendously up to this day, to be independent and also to commit to something. Commit to something that you believe in and really honor that commitment. And that is what that experience taught me. So I got my scholarship, went on to ODU. My freshman year, I was voted MVP in a tournament, incidentally, Anthony. I was telling you about Shaka Hislop, the Trinidad goalkeeper who played at Howard University. Yes. So in my freshman year, we had a classic called the Kiwanis Club Classic. And I was voted MVP in that classic, played against Shaka, and we defeated Howard University 1-0 in the finals. Right. So after my freshman year, the coach who recruited me, who gave me my scholarship, he got fired. And I'll tell you this, his firing was orchestrated by a group of players who, for one reason or the other, didn't like him. I don't know what, but we had a big meeting with the athletic director and all that stuff. And I was the only one who stood up and spoke in support of the coach who eventually got fired. I was like, man, listen, this guy gave me an opportunity of a lifetime. And short of him committing a crime, even then, he's going to have my full support, and I'm going to be 100% loyal to him. And that is something also that I try to teach the young kids when I coach and when I try to speak about my experiences. Loyalty loyalty is extremely important, you know, because if you can demonstrate to someone that you're loyal to them for whatever reason, confidence in you and respect for you as a human being is going to be very, very evident, you know? And so I was loyal to him, of course. That sort of fractured the relationship that I had with some of my teammates, but they respected me for the stance that I took, you know? And even up to today, I have one of my former teammates. He works at the World Bank in Washington, D.C., and every so often we would message each other, and he would always say, Bramble, man, Bramble, I remember that freshman year, you know, and he would always remind me of that stance that I took. And that has stayed with me throughout my life. Even today as a politician, as an economist prior to that, as my country's deputy ambassador to Washington, to the United States, as an ambassador of the Organization of American States to Suriname in South America, all of those career paths I took and enjoyed. And I would venture to say that I think I did pretty okay. You know, I think I did pretty okay. But all of that I can attribute to my experience as a college soccer player. Because what I learned, as I said before, loyalty, commitment, you know, confidence, committed. The main thing though is commitment, committing to something and making sure that you honor that commitment to the point where your objective is achieved. And I'm proud to say that, you know, my experience as a college player taught me that. Obviously, of course, during my college career, I also was on the senior national team, and they would fly me back home to play for the national team. I played against guys like Dwight York. And I'll give you a quick story, Anthony. It was in Jamaica in 1993 in the Caribbean Cup. We came up against Trinidad in the semifinals. And I, as a goalkeeper, I always visualize. I would sit there, especially 2-3 hours leading up to the game, and I would create game scenarios in my mind. Right. And you would not believe, when I tell people this, they think I'm making up this story. I visualized in that Trinidad game that Dwight York was gonna get a penalty against me, and I was gonna save that penalty. Right. I kid you not, Anthony. Just as I visualized, Dwight York got a penalty. And you know what I did? What I visualized, the final part of my visualization was that I would have dove to the left and made the save. And at the last minute, I changed and dove to the right. And you would not believe he put the ball to the left and scored. And I was like, man, you need to follow your instincts. If you had followed what you visualized, and I would have been the hero. Yes. You know, Dwight York was a big Man United star, big Trinidad and Tobago star, and this young boy from St. Vincent, little St. Vincent, saving a penalty against Dwight York. Can you imagine what inspiration that would have given? But that's how that ended.